All right, everyone, let's go ahead and get started. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on your time zone to you, and happy Easter to everyone on the conference today. Hope all of you and your families are doing well and staying safe during this time. And we'll go ahead and start this session of the 2020 Virus-Free Virtual Clinic. Pretty much today, it's a rules-based session. We're going to try to go over some things for the kicking game. Again, my name's Kevin Boitman, glad to be here. And as the disclaimer says, nothing I say should be construed as official guidance from the NCAA or any conference. Just talking football like we've been doing. And if there's something you have a question with or think we said something wrong, point it out, bring it up. We get a collaboration. If we need to get some correction out, we will. The point of this is to get everybody talking, thinking football right now and going forward. Like I said, we're going to talk about some rules involving the kicking game. And the reason I wanted to go over the kicking game is sort of in my experience, if something's going to go wrong in a game, it's going to be in the kicking game. And that's just because the rules tend to change a little. Our basic enforcement isn't always what you think it would be. And I know we have a lot of people on the conference and a lot of on conference call and a lot of people with different levels of experience. Some of you have worked the highest levels for a long time. Some of you are just starting and still might even be also working some high school games as well. And as you know, when it comes to the kicking game, the rules just aren't the same. So that's why I wanted to try to maybe break a few things down today. We've got 8 videos we're going to try to get through. And we've also loaded up this session with a lot of polls for a few reasons. One, you seem to like the polls, and we like that you like them. It gets everybody involved. And especially on today's session where it's a little more rules-based, not maybe mechanics or philosophy, these polls tend to be like little mini test questions like we're all studying right now. So let's go ahead and start over. And the way we'll do it, the first videos are going to be things that we kind of deal with during games routinely every week. Moving up to the last 2 videos where it's maybe something we don't see all the time, but they're important when we do see them. So we'll go ahead and start with the first one here. I'll go ahead and pop this on the screen. And another disclaimer right now, I'm pretty bad with technology, so forgive me if I go a little slow. But right now we'll go ahead and play the video. And you'll see right there what we're kind of looking at, and we'll go ahead and play it again. I'll put a poll up too. And for this first poll, I'm asking you, where's the penalty for B's holding foul during the kick enforced? And we'll go ahead and leave that up and play the video again for you. And just so you can see right there where we're looking at, it's this area right here where we're going to have some action between the 25 and the 30. So that's the area we're kind of looking at. Okay. So we see the polls coming in. Most of you have said it's where B caught the punt. It'll be 1st and 10 for B. 1 or 2 saying spotted the foul, 1st and 10. And so I think pretty much the majority, everyone has the right idea here. And what we're talking about, this is the basic thing we want to think about when it comes to punting plays. And a large part of that is the idea of post-scrimmage kick enforcement. The rule, we know normally when we enforce a foul by the offense actually has to be the offense. It's the team in possession. But when we have punts and we have fouls by Team B, there's a chance that we might be able to enforce the foul as if B had been in possession, the post-scrimmage kick. But there's going to be a few things that have to happen. The foul has to occur during the kick. The ball has to cross the neutral zone. And this is important. Team B will next put the ball in play, meaning Team B has to be the one in legal possession. If Team A is in legal possession at the end of the down, we can't have post-scrimmage kick enforcement. And the other thing, of course, very important, It's not during a try, a successful field goal, or overtime. If that happens, we'll use the basic 3-and-1 principle. And as you all have said, most of you, we're going to enforce it from where the punt was caught, because that's the post-scrimmage kicks. So any other questions on that? We want to go back to this video, though. Let me get that up real quick. And this time we want to bring attention to something else. If you notice during the play, we'll bring it up, there was a kicking team member who was out of bounds. So go ahead and just put a play up here and go ahead and, while the poll is published, go ahead and play it. And so in this end zone shot, we're going to see something, and I'll pause it right here. If you notice, we have a receiver out of bounds at this point. Yeah, messed that up, sorry. Now, the general rule for a kicking team is that a kicking player cannot go out of bounds and return at any point during the down. Now, if he's pushed out, he can come back in as soon as he can. But if he goes out voluntarily, he can't come back in at all during the foul. And that is a foul for returning from out of bounds. Now, here in this play, we have a foul by the Team B for holding and a foul by Team A for returning out of bounds. Both of them occur before the kick is completed. So the question on the poll is, what do you do with this when you have both fouls by each team and some answers are coming in? I'll let the poll go up for a few more seconds. And just in case you want to see it again. Okay, and let's see. I'll go ahead and close this point. Okay, and we've pretty much got a little bit of a breakdown. 40% of you saying the foul's offset, 53% saying decline the foul for returning out of bounds and penalize the holding by Team B, and B keeps the ball, and a small amount of you keeps cancel. So let's go ahead and take a look at this. Just what do the rules say? We know we have the idea of the clean hands rule generally, and that is if the defense gets the ball without fouling, they got it with clean hands, they can keep the ball. That's now the general rule is when you have something from each side of you, when there's a fly ball foul by each team during the down, the general rule is that we're going to offset. But there is a post-scrimmage kick clean hands rule too. When all of Team B's fouls occurring before a possession changes or fouls that can be enforced as post-scrimmage kick, then we have a clean hands rule. Team B can accept the enforcement from its own foul by declining the action for the receiver out of bounds. So the idea, if you think of it this way, if B had his hands clean before the ball was ever kicked, then we have a version of the clean hands. He can decline the Team A foul, keep the ball, but have his own offensive hold penalized from the spot of the foul. PSK by declining the other foul from the other team. So any questions on that one?
Hey, Kevin.
Go ahead.
So good play. You know, talk about if he gets blocked out of bounds, does that change any of this?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it changes a lot because while a kicking team player cannot go out of bounds, if he's pushed out of bounds, if he's forced out of bounds, to where it's the other team's fault, we're going to ignore that. As it's not a foul, we just want him to get back in bounds as quickly as he can. So the idea is the question you would want to ask, and usually if it's going to be your field judge or side judge will probably be the one seeing this. How did he get out of bounds? If he went out of bounds on his own and came back in, we have a foul. If he went out of bounds because he was pushed out of bounds by an opponent, we don't have a foul. And in that case, we don't have a foul for returning out of bounds. The only thing we would have on this play is the holding by the offensive player, and that would be the very first question we asked would be enforced under post scrimmage kick. Is that it, Brandon?
Yeah, one more clarification. So really what you're saying is Team B's option here is to either offset, replay the down, or apply the clean hands rule, right? Can you?
That's it. They right. Depending on where Team B ends up with the ball, and as we see right now, they're going to end up with the ball on the 20-yard line. So Team B has an option. They can still offset the fouls if they want, because there is a foul by each team, and they can say, let's replay the down. Or they can say, no, you know what, I'm good with the yardage. I caught it at the 20. Let's go back 10 yards from my holding foul and play first and 10 at the 10-yard line. A lot of things will go into play, such as field position, time of the game, advantage, but those are the things that Team B can do. And those are the things you'd want to find out when you're talking to the coach.
All right, and then, keep piling on here.
Sure.
You're a former referee. Have you ever had to announce ROB, that foul, and how did you do it?
I have had one time, and I can't remember. Well, it would have been during the kick, I believe, but I think it was during the kick. Number 15 of the kicking team went out of bounds on his own and came back in. That's a 5-yard penalty. And in the situation I had, we didn't have another foul with it. We just added it on to the spot. But It's very rare that you have it. But with me, it was just during the play, number 15 of the kicking team went out of bounds and returned on his own. That's a foul and a 5-yard penalty. I don't know if you've had to do it where you may have to say it a little better than I did.
No, I like that when it's not such a rare announcement, rare foul to call. I like the technique that you use there of basically just telling everybody what happened. And I think that's when in doubt, just tell everybody what happened on the microphone.
It's a good one because I think too, while we call that returning from out of bounds, the rule book certainly doesn't call it that foul. So that's just like sometimes, as you very well know, you just have to sort of describe what happened.
That's right.
Okay. All right. So we want to go ahead and actually let me clear that off. Kind of staying on the ideas of post-scrimmage kick. Remember in the first play, we just talked about things that have to happen for the post-scrimmage kick rules to apply. The foul has to occur during the kick. The foul has to cross the neutral zone. And B has to be the next team to put the ball in play. Well, what if you have a situation where the foul doesn't occur during the kick? And that's what this next play will do. And real quick, let me see. Let me try to, video's playing on me a little quick here. So I'm going to go ahead and back it up to the start. And what we'd like to see, you're going to see at the left guard, number 7, and the defensive man, number 29. Take a look at that action. As we go down, you're going to see there's a pretty good grab, hook, spin that we can say number 19 committed a foul for holding there. But take a look at when that action occurs. The kicker is back there just holding the ball in his hands. So everything we see about this foul occurs before the kick is ever kicked. So the foul does not occur during the kick at all. So that's what we're looking at. And here is your poll question. We're going to have a foul by B19. Question, where is the penalty for that holding foul enforced? And while that's up there, I'll go ahead and play the video again. We'll just loop it again for a little while the poll numbers are coming through. Okay, we'll go a few more seconds here. Okay, and we'll go ahead and end the poll. Okay, kind of looks like most of you are saying let's go from the previous spot because this foul occurred before the kick. About a quarter of you are saying we would enforce this from the end of the kick as PSK. This one, if we go by the complete letter of the law here and the way the rule is set, like we said, we know that PSK has to occur during the kick, not before it. But this is actually when, in addition to the rule book, we've got to look to our philosophy manual. And again, this is one of those things sort of peculiar to the kicking game. The rules do say one thing, but we also have a philosophy in our football officiating manual. When in question, a foul by the receiving team occurs after the ball is kicked. And you can find that in section 3 of your philosophy and kicking plays in the manual. Why is that important? What you're seeing right now in this video, it was with the left guard going downfield. I think a lot of times we might see this with the gunners, who may get taken down 3 or 4 steps right after they leave the line of scrimmage, but before the kick. We really want those to be PSK, and that's kind of what the philosophy is saying here. And what you basically do is kind of stretch the kick when you need to do it. How do you determine whether you need to stretch the kick and make this a post-scrimmage kick foul or make it a pre-kick previous spot foul? Well, this was told to me, and I won't take credit for it, but I'll give credit to an umpire that I respect a lot, Butch Hanna, for kind of helping out with it, and I hope I'm quoting him right. You're going to focus on what the team B player is trying to do. So let's take a look at like 19 here. If 19 is making some type of normal defensive action to get to the ball, to get to the punter, those things that occur before the kick, well, that's perfectly fine. And those fouls would be enforced from the previous spot. Think of like you're leaping the protector shield. You're roughing the kicker. Those times, those players are running toward the ball carrier. And so in that situation, what you've got is a situation where it's a pre-possession if it's going to do it. But remember what the defense is allowed to do. The defense can pull, the defense can push, the defense can shed that blocker in front of them. They can pretty much do a lot of things by pulling out the way to get to the ball carrier, and we see that in 934A. So if that's what the defense is trying to do, if he's trying to get to the ball carrier, well, it's not going to be PSK. But if his action is designed to prevent the team A player from getting downfield to the receiver, well, then treat that as occurring during the kick, because he's not acting like a defensive player trying to get to the ball. He's acting like an offensive player trying to prevent the team A player from getting down. And if he's going to do that, the rules say you can push, pull all you want to get to the ball carrier. But if you're not trying to get to the ball carrier, you can't push or pull. You have to comply with the normal rules. And if you have to comply with the normal rules, we're going to treat you like the offense. So in this particular play, I don't think anyone is thinking that 19 is trying to shed that block from the left guard to get to the punter. So he's not trying to go there. We're not going to treat him like he's doing the defensive action. We're going to treat him like he's on the offense trying to prevent someone from getting down. And if that case, we can go ahead and quote unquote stretch this kick to make the foul occur during the kick. Again, this is one of those times philosophy gets very much involved with the rule here. Any questions on that?
Hey, Kev, all the questions were oriented toward exactly what you covered. That was really well done. Let's move on.
Okay, we'll go ahead and let me get that out of here. Okay, the next one, we're going to move into a little bit of kick catching interference. And we're going to have a session coming up on more where they're going to go much more detail. But I'm going to play 2 videos here, and we'll have a poll for each video. But we're watching the action, obviously, involving the receiver, a potential receiver, and the player in front of them. And here's the first one. All right, I'll bring that up one more time, but I'm going to go ahead and publish this poll while we're doing it. And it's a basic basic question, but the answers are a little different. Is this kick catching interference? And I'll go ahead and play the video again while that's coming up. I'll play it one more time. Okay, we'll go ahead and close that poll out, and we'll say for right now, it looks like 89% of you have said yes in all circumstances. Okay, so we'll hold that one out, and now we'll go on to play 4. And while that's coming out, kind of the same question here, but take a look at the answers, and I will go ahead and play this video while that poll is going up. Again, looking at the action involving the potential receiver and those around him. There'll be I think we get a close-up of this one coming up, so you'll be able to see a little more. But what we have here on this particular play when it comes up is the receiver is going to signal for a fair catch. He's going to muff the ball, attempt to catch the ball, and as that is happening, he gets contact. And then close-up here will show a good look at it. So those are going on the second one. We'll go ahead and hold that poll open as the votes are coming in for a bit. We'll go ahead and take a few more seconds. And we'll go ahead and close the poll now. Okay, and it looks like on this one, we have a pretty good split, about almost split evenly between the first two choices, 41% saying in all circumstances, 45% saying because there's a signal given, and then 13% of you saying no because the receiver's punt. Okay, so let's talk about what we have when we get to kick catching interference. We know that by rule, we have to give any receiver an opportunity to catch the ball when it's at least crossing the neutral zone. And that opportunity has to be what we call an unimpeded opportunity. It's kick-catch interference for a kicking team player to get 1 yard in front of the receiver and between his shoulders. That's a no man's land. If you're in there, it's kick-catching interference, or if you contact the receiver before he touches the ball. Now, in the rule itself, not philosophy, but in the rule itself, if there's any question, we want to flag for kick-catching interference. Here's the important thing. To have this unimpeded opportunity, you don't need to give a signal. You just have to be a receiver in the position where you can make the catch and you're trying to make the catch. As long as you do that, you have the opportunity, unimpeded opportunity to catch the ball. So in the very first play we had, which would be where there wasn't any touching the ball, whether that receiver in the first question gave a signal or not, he has the unimpeded opportunity. So when number 6 is in front of him within a yard, that's going to be kick-catching interference. Doesn't matter whether he gave the signal or not. We had a fair catch signal in this play, but it didn't matter. Also, the fact, and I think everybody got this, the fact that the receiver moves forward sort of into number 6 area is not a big issue either. Because that receiver has the unimpeded opportunity, the burden is on the kicking team player, number 6 here, to avoid. contact or avoid being in that zone. So we have a foul for kick catching interference here in all circumstances on the first play. The second one is a little different because we want to know about how long does this unimpeded opportunity last. And that kind of depends if a signal is given. If no fair catch signal is given, you have that opportunity until the kick touches the ground or until the receiving team, the team B player, touches the kick, the scrimmage kick beyond the neutral zone or touches the free kick anywhere. Bottom line in that situation, if you're not giving a signal, you'll have an opportunity until you touch it or until the ball touches the ground. So what's the difference if you give a fair catch signal? If you give the signal, we're going to give you the opportunity to catch the ball even after you muff it. So in the second play, we have the Iowa State player gives a signal, muffs the ball. At this point, he still has his opportunity to catch the ball because he gave that signal. And as we know from one of our very first sessions, catching the ball, just like catching a pass, is a process. You have to get possession of the ball, touch and bounds, and maintain possession by showing control. Maintain long enough to do a football move or something like that. It's no different in this situation. So here, when number 4, or it might not be number 14, but when the kicking team player contacts the Iowa State player here, before he finishes the catch, it's kick catching interference. But it's not kick catching interference if he doesn't give the signal. The signal provides that extra protection here. So that's kind of the little answers on that. Any questions on that you see in Brandon or Tuta, Daniel?
No, man, Kevin, you're on a roll. Keep it up.
Okay. All right. So let's see. Going into something else. Here's something we see every now and then. What we're going to do here is kind of take a look at the action of this receiver. This is in a punt play. So keep that in mind as we go on. Okay, I'll just play a very simple poll on here with a few different answers. Has 16 committed a foul? And I'll play it. At this point, like I said, let's imagine this is a punt play, which it is. Okay. All right, so I'll get this one open for another second. And we'll go ahead and end this one right about now. And good. It looks about everybody's pretty good here. About 85% say, let's say this is a foul, and you enforce it from the end of the run. I'm sorry, the end of the kick, and B keeps the ball. Okay, let's take a look at this same play and go to the second poll. This was a punt play. But let's assume this happens in a free kick. And realizing the chances of it happening deep on a free kick doesn't always happen, but you might have some upfront linemen or upfront receiving team players who give a signal and then kind of do this and block. So your question is here is, what if this occurred on a kickoff? And I'll go ahead and play just one more time so you can see it. Okay, votes are coming in. We'll let it go just a second or two more. Okay, we'll go ahead and end the poll just about now. Okay, and most of you are saying 65% of you are saying enforce it from the previous spots. All right, so we'll go ahead and take a look. We know that a player who signals for a fair catch is not allowed to throw a block throughout the down. Our player who gives a signal may not block and foul our opponent during the down. Let's take a look at the first one. We said this was a scrimmage, a punt play, and I think most of you had that. We would enforce that under a post-scrimmage kick rule. This is a foul by Team B during the kick, and Team B will next put the ball in play, so we can enforce that from the end of the kick spot. The free kick is a little different. I think most of you said we would go from the previous spot because that makes sense. We have a free kick and we know the basic spots is generally the previous spot. This rule is one of those little exceptions though. And during a free kick, and if you look in the rule book, the rule is Rule 654, and the penalty provision is very specific. It's the receiving team's ball 15 yards from the spot of the foul. This is one of those other reasons why the kicking game is not quite the easiest thing to deal with, because the rules don't always follow the general rules everywhere else. So if this happened in a free kick, if you had either this deep return man giving the signal and blocking, or some up front receiving team player, maybe on a shorter pooch kick, gives a signal and ends a ball, under the specific rule of 5-4, it's an exception to our normal enforcement. You enforce the ball from the spot of the foul, and the receiving team keeps the ball. Obviously, if Team A ends up in possession at that point, legal possession where they're going to take the ball, they will probably decline the foul. You never have to worry about it. But this is just one of those things that doesn't happen often on a free kick. But if it does, remember that that's a little specific exception. Any questions on that?
Hey, Kevin. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
From a mechanics perspective on the punt play, there was some discussion about that, and I don't know if Daniel and I, maybe we need to cover this when we do KCI
Sure.
And kick plays. In terms of who would see that that blocking action. So let's assume that the deep official at the top is the field judge. Well, the field judge and the back judge would be boxing in the ball and working the ball. So we would want the side judge, who's on the opposite side of the field, to be aware of that player blocking. And it may be a good idea for deep officials, if they ever see a returner blocking, to immediately go to the back judge. Number 16 blocked, did he signal? So just make it a habit. Number 16 blocked, did he signal? Most of the time they're going to say, no, he didn't signal. But if you're the offside official, and that's who will be watching that blocking action, you need to come in and make sure you have a conversation with the back judge and give him information, specific information. Number 16 blocked, did he signal?
No, that's great advice, Tutai. And I'll say from my former referee days, I think the best thing for you all to do, you would have those conversations and that advice up front before anything ever came forward to the referee as well. And it's something, like you said, the communication is important. And the communication is important in this situation because it is obviously a very big foul. If you take a look at this play, where does the ball run to? It goes back to the 2-yard line, I think, ultimately. So we're talking about a really rough penalty if that happened, right? So Correct. You're going to have that communication and go through it. You know, the other thing I'll say, but just briefly talking about referee issues, you know, we always want to get through penalty enforcements fairly efficiently and fairly quickly. But Tutai, like you just pointed out on something like this, we need to take the time. And again, going back to my referee days, we wanted to move them quickly. But if we ever had a foul or ever had something happen in a punt play or free kick, had no problem if we took a few extra seconds, especially for things you just talked about, because enforcement matters. Enforcement is different than everywhere else. And if you're going to take any extra time to get something right, take the extra time in the kicking play.
Yep.
So anything else on those?
Yeah, Kevin, I mean, you're covering all these points, but let's just make sure we're all on the same page. Why isn't this, blocking by the fair catch signaler? Why aren't you using 3-1 enforcement to properly administer this penalty?
Well, on a scrimmage kick, we will ultimately use 3-1 enforcement in conjunction with the post-scrimmage kick rules.
Right.
because the post scrimmage kick will be the basic spot. So here the foul is in advance of the post scrimmage kick spot, right? So we're not going to go from the spot of the foul. We're going to go from the end of the kick because the offense, or who we consider the offense, Team B, fouled in advance of the basic spot. So the foul will be enforced, in this case, half the distance from the post scrimmage kick spot, which is the end of the kick, which is the basic spot.
What about a free kick?
The free kick, the only reason we're not doing standard 3-and-1 enforcement is because the penalty provision is specific to this rule. And that happens throughout the NCAA rule book in certain situations. Our first thought is to go to Rule 10 for when we enforce rules. And if you go to Rule 10, it tells you everything to do. But throughout the book, there are some exceptions. This is one of them. And if you look in the penalty provision of any rule, if that specifically says it's this and only this, we're not looking at 3-and-1. And if you look at FR 71, Rule 654, the penalty, it's very clear. Free kick, receiving team's ball 15 yards from the spot of the foul. So that's the only reason we don't do 3-and-1 basic enforcement on a free kick on this type of play. Does that answer that?
That's a great explanation. Now, quickly back to the scrimmage kick.
Yes.
So Team A ends up, they're not in possession, but so why is that still PSK even though Team A, quote, downs the ball?
Okay, good question. The answer, so it's on this, we have Team A illegally touches the ball when they possess it at the end, right? Okay, so looking back to our post-scrimmage kick rules, it's not necessarily a question of who is in possession as much as it is will B put the ball next in play. Now, if A is in legal possession, meaning they legally got it, they can recover it, it's fine. But let's take a look at what they've got, and we're actually going to get to this a little bit in the next slide when we talk, or in another slide when we talk about illegal touching. Is Team A legally in possession at the end of the ball? And the answer is no, it's not. They only become, on a scrimmage kick that crosses the neutral zone, Team A is only going to be in legal possession if B touches that kick, which makes everybody eligible again, and then A would fall on it. This, even though Team A is possessing it at the end, it's nothing more as if we just threw a beanbag down for that's where they illegally touched it. They're not in legal possession. So what does that mean? That means the ball belongs to B at that spot. So B will put the ball in play at that spot. That's the end of the kick. And so because B will next put the ball in play, we are now dealing with post-scrimmage kick rules. That may have been a little long way of getting around it, but did that answer it, Brandon?
Yeah, that was an excellent explanation. Keep rolling, Kev. Way to go, man.
Okay. Since the last poll talked about kickoffs, we're going to go into kickoffs this time. And it's going to be a penalty enforcement question. So let's take a look at running this play real quick and just watch it real quick. We're going to have a kick from the 35 that is going to be fielded in the end zone, or maybe just right at the goal line. He runs out and is tackled at the 1. Okay, so we know the result of the play here now. Play just keeps jumping off. So before we start, what I want you to take a look at is the receiving team player on the front line at the 50. He's going to come across from a side, just kind of watching him and potentially throwing a blindside block just past midfield around the 40-yard line. I'm going to go ahead and play it again. And if any were you on yesterday, Corey did a great job of giving a blindside block explanations talking about this. To be clear, I don't think this is a forcible blindside block that needs to be called, so let's take that. But I want you to assume, for purposes of my question, that that is an illegal blindside block that was thrown by number 34 of the receiving team. And I'm going to play one more time, and I'm having a little trouble stopping the video at the right time, but what you're going to see is that when this contact occurs, it's hard to see, but the receiver has not actually caught the ball. The kick is still in the air when my hypothetical blindside block occurs. So what I want you to do on this poll is assume that there is a blindside block committed by Team B during the kick, before the receiver catches the ball. What do we do from there? And while that's up, just so you can see it again, and of course, not really talking about mechanics, but Tuta and Daniel, if there's anything you see for how this could be covered, because, you know, we have our new mechanics with different lanes and everything set up, which will still be the mechanic for this year. Whether that's a blindside block or not right now, it's something we would want to judge. It's something that could involve targeting. We would want to know it is, or whether it is. Okay. One more time while the polls are going, and I'll go ahead and shut it down in a second or two. Okay, I'll go ahead and end the poll at this point. Okay, and so we've got a little bit of a division, about 2-1 here for the most part. 60% of you saying let's enforce from the previous spot and re-kick. 24% of you saying enforce it from the end of the run with B's ball. And so let's go ahead and take a look at it. You know, we kind of want to say, in sometimes, go ahead and enforce it from the end of the run, because we want to treat this like a post-scrimmage kick rule that we would do on a punt. However, post-scrimmage kick does not apply to free kick. So those benefits we have of saying, let's treat this foul like it occurred with B in possession, because B will next put the ball in play, so let's make it post-scrimmage kick. We don't have that ability in a free kick game. And if we go too quickly, sometimes that's something we can easily mistake, and it would be a big mistake. The rule is when the team not in possession commits a foul, either behind or beyond the basic spot, the penalty is enforced at the basic spot. Well, this is a free kick play, and it's important that we remember the term is free kick play, scrimmage kick play, not loose ball play. We don't have those. We have a free kick play here, and a free kick play has a previous spot that is the previous spot is the basic spot. The fouls cannot be covered by PSK rules. That's a glitch in the way I type that. But for a kick play, you only have the enforcement if it fouls during the kick. The enforcement, the basic spot is the previous spot. We have two exceptions to that rule, and again, those are specified in the penalty provision. And one is an illegal wedge under Rule 6110, and the other is what we just talked about, the illegal block by a signaling player. So in this situation, if we assume Team B threw an illegal blindside block against the kicking team while the kick is still a kick before it's possessed, if that's possessed, we're going to enforce it from the previous spot, and the only option would be to re-kick. Any questions on that? Brandon, Tuta, Daniel?
No, man, you're doing well. Keep it rolling.
Okay. So getting into the last two plays here. And again, like I said, we're going into something that we don't always see every game, but when it happens, it can happen a lot. So just like you would in a game, you want to make sure you're concentrating at the last 2 minutes just as hard as you were in the first 2 minutes. So first, I'll go ahead and play this play. A lot happens on it, so I'm just going to let it play through. And what we're going to be looking at, we're going to be looking at a potential touching by the kicking team on an onside kick, potential blocking by the kicking team, and then we're going to be looking at who recovers. And we'll also look at some other things during the play a little later. You can just take a look at the time here. This is late in the fourth quarter. It's a 10-point game, and we have an onside kick with red coming up with the recovery. Here's a good look from the end zone, and you're going to see the ball bouncing around. We've got some touching there. We've got other players. And then we have a potential blocking around the 43 or 44 yard line. So I'll go ahead and play that one again and put the poll up here. And the poll is Team A is recovering. We're going to say Team A recovers this at the 8:48. The very first thing. Has Team A broken any other rules in this play? Your options: illegal touching, illegal blocking, or illegal touching and illegal blocking. Yeah, I'm sorry, just published the poll, so we'll leave that up a little bit longer. And I'll go ahead and play it again for you while the poll is up. You probably have the most going on in this play, and of course it always happens towards the end of the game, which is, again, different rules in play and different everything. So let's see, we'll go ahead. Looks like the numbers are stopping. So I'll go ahead and end the poll at this point. Okay. So it looks like we've got 59% of you saying the only thing is illegal touching, 17% saying the only thing is illegal blocking, 23% saying both. Okay, so let's take a look at it. So let's talk about what happens and what can Team A do. Can Team A ever recover or legally touch a ball in a kickoff? Yes, they can, but a few things have to happen. The kick either has to touch a B player, it either has to break the plane of and remain beyond B's restraining line, or the kick has to touch something beyond B's restraining line. If that doesn't happen and the Team A touches the ball before that, it's a violation for illegal touching of a kick. It's not a foul, it's called a violation for a reason, and that's where we're going to drop the beanbag, and we always have an beanbag spot. So looking at this play, and I think the end zone shot shows it pretty good. We have the player touching the kick, I think, around the 43-yard line, maybe the 44. I think it was the 43. Or the 44. I just don't have it right in front of me. But at some point before it went those 10 yards, before it touched the B player, before it broke the plane of B's restraining line, before it touched anything beyond B's restraining line, we have a beanbag for illegal touching of a kick. Now the question was about the block. Did they commit illegal blocking? Well, we know the rule says Team A cannot block an opponent until they're eligible to touch the kick. So just like they can't touch the kick, they can't block the kick for that block an opponent for that same amount of time. That is a foul for illegal blocking. But blocking is more than just making contact. And if we're going to throw a foul for Team A blocking a B player, we want the B player to be passive. He can't be actively trying to go after the ball, or he can't be actively trying to engage the kicking team player. One, the kicking team player has an opportunity and a right to defend himself. But if the Team B player is making an active move in the play, he's saying, I am part of this and I'm coming at you. He's not just standing there being passive. And passive is part of our philosophy. I looked in the CCA manual, I looked in the rule book. I can't find the word passive. But it is, I did find it in the instant replay mechanics, because this is a foul that replay can help you on. And replay is looking at the same things that we are on the field on this. Now, in this situation, and I'll play the video again as we're talking about it, if you take a look at the Team B player who gets contacted here, you can see he is moving forward aggressively. It's number 23. He is dropping his shoulder. He's not in a passive position. He is actively engaging the play. So this is one, because he is active and not passive, we would not, under the rule or the philosophy here, have a foul on Team A for illegal kicking, or illegal blocking on the kick, or what I like to call illegal early blocking. Brandon, Chutai, Daniel, any questions on that coming up?
There's a lot of chatter about the blindside block by the receiving team at the top of the screen.
Yeah, I was actually
clear and obvious blindside block. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's something we're going to go to that a little else too, because if you haven't seen, the chatter just tells you on an onside kick play like that, It's not just what happens in the area of the ball that matters. And it's not only, we'll get to this view coming up, I'll say it's not only the blindside block, but if that player who threw the blindside block, look where he is at the time of the kick. And we'll get the view coming up here, but you're going to see something we also don't see very often on this play. But the Team B player is clearly offside before the kick goes. That's the same player that comes and throws that blindside block. So keep that in mind, and I'm going to go ahead and throw a poll question up here. But before we get to that blindside block, what I want you to consider is this. Remember, I just said I don't think this is an early block by all. I think the B player is active, and so this is not a foul. But for purposes of this next question, let's assume that we have an illegal touch at the A44 and that we do have an illegal early block by Team A at the A43. Ignore the blindside block for right now. Ignore the offside by B for right now. Let's deal only with the Team A fouls. And the violation. So we have a violation for illegal touching and an early block at the A43. A is in possession at the end of this down, and B wants the ball. What do we do here? And just so you can love this video and get sick of it, I'll play it again while the poll is going. Okay, so most of you are coming in saying decline the early and take the ball at the spot of the foul. And a couple of smaller percentages kind of split between keep the ball but enforce the penalty. One, enforce it from the spot of the foul, and one, enforce it from the spot of the touch. So I'll go ahead and end the poll in just a second. Okay. All right, so let's talk about that great beanbag spot. When we have that illegal touching, that beanbag spot, when we have it, B gets the opportunity to take the ball at that spot. It's almost a question of if anything else happens in the down, B will usually get the chance to say, you know what, I want the ball, I'm going to put it at the beanbag spot. And that's great. That's why we bagged the spot in the first place. But they lose the ability to do that if there are offsetting fouls or if the penalty for a live ball foul is accepted during the down. So let's talk about the possibility of saying we want to accept the penalty and keep the ball. All right, well, if we accept the penalty, that beanbag spot goes away. So if the beanbag spot goes away, that means B can't put the ball at that point. What does that mean? It means they're not in legal possession of the ball anymore. What does that mean? Because A ended up with it. Well, if we're going to accept the penalty and the beanbag disappears, what is the basic spot on a free kick play? The only option at that point is to enforce the penalty from the previous spot, which means you have to re-kick it. Pretty much what we're saying is you don't get the beanbag and the ball. You get one or the other. So B, of course, has options, though. And in their option here, the most likely thing is that they would not go ahead and accept the penalty. They would decline the penalty and take the ball at the spot of the beanbag, at the spot of illegal touching, because that's where the dead ball belongs to them at that point. So any questions on that one? Brandon?
No, Kevin, you're on a roll. Keep it up.
Yeah. All right. And some of you have already seen the other, find the next poll on this play. Now I have on here that Team B is offside, but I think you also saw the pretty clear blindside block hit on a defenseless player, however you want to call it. It's a problem and we need to see it. So we have at least 2 B fouls, offside and a blindside block, during the kick. So assume that team B is offside at the top of the screen. Go ahead and assume the blindside block as well. That A illegally touches and recovers. There is no illegal block on this play. So by A, forget about the early block. Only what we have on the film. Offside, blindside block by B, illegal touching by A, and a recovery by A. So what happens next? Okay, votes are coming in pretty much sort of keeping a strong majority here. Okay, we'll go ahead and end the poll in just a few seconds. Okay. And you see about 77% A accepts the penalty enforced from the previous spot and re-kick. And that's right under the rule. It's because we have the penalty that occurs during a free kick. And so that's the basic spot. Now, there's an argument upside. Well, we want the ball. We want to decline the penalty and have the ball. Okay, but here's the thing. It's not one of those situations because at the time the foul occurred, we have a foul with the previous spot of enforcement. So it's not a situation that you can decline it, because if you decline the penalty, we still have an illegal touch spot. And if you decline the penalty, that beanbag is still on the ground. Team B is going to say, I want the ball at that spot. And that's the consequence of Team A touching the ball illegally. If they accept the penalty, yes, the beanbag goes away and B doesn't have that option, but the enforcement spot is the previous spot. So A can't take the foul and the ball in this situation. Anything else on that one?
No, other than this is a funny comment. Kicking rules make my head hurt, and I think that's the point. I mean, I think that's why you're covering all these, and so just keep it up.
That's the point exactly. And Brandon, I mean, I'm sure you've had your issues with kick plays too, of taking those extra time that you need to get these things straight, because it's a mess.
Yes, absolutely.
Last play I'm going to show you, and this it can be a field goal or a try, and we're going to talk both ways about it. But let's first talk about let's talk of it as a field goal. We have a field goal attempt from the 3. The ball is going to be blocked. It's going to be then touched by B, number 4. Another B player is going to get it in the end zone and run it through. So we're going to be really concerned about that contact with 4 and kind of what happens after that. And so I'll go ahead and first of the last few polls on this play, and this is another play you'll get sick of. But here's the first one, and it's pretty big. When does the kick cross the neutral zone? Play it one more time while the last few poll answers come in, while the votes are counted. Okay, and we'll go ahead and end the poll at this point. Okay. It's sort of an even split between when it broke the plane or when 4 touched it, and a few people saying when it touched the ground or when B recovered in the end zone. When a ball crosses a zone is a really important concept because it makes so many things happen. So let's talk about what we know here. crossing the neutral zone, the rule, and this is going to your Rule 2 definitions, which is pretty much the source of everything. A scrimmage kick has crossed the neutral zone when it touches anything beyond the neutral zone. So right away, when we say when it touches, we know that the plane of the neutral zone isn't the important thing. And again, I'll point, this is one of those strange rules, and especially for those of you who are just coming from the high school federation rules and into college and maybe working both rule books. This is one of the differences, and this is one of the things that separates the two rules, because your old high school rule worries about where the ball is. College worries about where the ball has been, and it worries about where it's touched. So a scrimmage kick is crossed the neutral zone when it touches something. There is an exception, and that is if you have a Team B opponent within 3 yards of the neutral zone who is blocking the kick. He's got to be within 3 yards, and he's got to be trying to block the kick. We'll ignore that touching. We'll pretend that the ball hasn't crossed. We'll pretend that happened in the back. But otherwise, it's where it was touched. And the first touching we have here is by number 4. Now, how do we know he's beyond 3 yards? Because on this play, we're snapping from the 3, and he's standing in the end zone. So by definition, we're beyond 3 yards in that point. So in this play, it crossed the neutral zone when number 4 touched it. So why is that important? There's a lot of consequences and importance of whether the ball crosses. Mostly, if the ball has not crossed, Team A can still play the ball. They can touch it, they can catch it, they can recover it, and they can advance it. So if it doesn't cross, it's still anybody's ball. When the touching happens, the touching matters. And if B touches the ball after it crosses, Team A can legally recover it, and it remains live. Now, they won't be able to advance, but Team A might get a new series out of it. If Team A touches the ball after it crosses the neutral zone, well, then it's a spot of illegal touching. And just like we talked about the illegal touching in the free kick, B would have the privilege of taking the ball at the illegal touching spot. Another thing to remember here, and this isn't written in the rule book, but this is just how it is. Once the ball crosses the neutral zone, it's always crossed. You don't have to worry about, oh, well, it bounces behind, now it's back behind the neutral zone. That's not the case. Once the ball has crossed, no matter what happens after that, it's crossed. And the important thing here is there's consequences for number 4 touching the ball here. An important thing is it makes it a scrimmage kick play. And because B touched the kick in flight after it crossed the neutral zone, the ball's not going to be dead when it touches the ground in the neutral zone. And that's a big thing, because normally if a ball goes into the neutral zone untouched, we're going to kill it and it's going to be a touchback. But because number 4 touched it, when it lands in the end zone, the ball is still live and Team A can go after it. And in this situation, Team A may end up with a touchdown if they possess it in the end zone. So any questions on that one real quick before I throw the next poll up? Brandon? Okay. All right. So I'm going to play it one more time for you. And the poll that I'm going to put up this time is kind of a simple here. What is the result of the play? Play it one more time while you're thinking about that. Okay, and we'll go ahead and shut the poll down. Okay, look, about 3/4 of you saying it's a touchback, and then a few saying the unsuccessful rule and some a safety. Okay, let's take care of the safety first. Whether something's a safety or a touchback, it all depends on who is responsible for putting the ball in the end zone. Who's responsible for making it cross the goal line? If you are responsible for putting the ball in your own goal line, the impetus is on you. If your opponent is responsible for putting the ball across the goal line, it's on them. Here, it's the field goal. Remember, a kick is a kick until it is dead. A muffed kick, a touch kick, a batted kick, whatever is still a kick. So here, when the ball goes into the end zone, the impetus is still from Team A's kick, not anything else. So it wouldn't be a safety here. And the fact that B picks it up, they start in the end zone. They didn't start in the field of play. So that's why it wouldn't be a safety. The unsuccessful field goal rule and touchback, you see they both go first to 10 to 20. Practically here, it doesn't make a difference on this play. It goes back to the 20. But the result of this play is a touchback. It's not the unsuccessful field goal rule. And I'm not trying to be cute about that. It is one of these things where it does matter. And it matters here for this reason. Hold on, sorry. Let's take a look at what the unsuccessful field goal attempts do. Generally, on an unsuccessful field goal attempt, if the ball untouched by B after crossing the neutral zone is declared dead, then B gets the option of taking the ball at the previous spot or the 20-yard line, whichever is better. But notice I said untouched by B. So when does B lose that privilege? They lose that privilege in a few opportunities. One is if the ball doesn't cross, and the big one here is if they touch the ball after it crosses. And remember, once it's crossed forever. So you think about here, when number 4 touches the ball, the whole benefit of the unsuccessful field goal option to go back to the previous spot or the 20, that's done. When someone touches the ball, when B touches the ball beyond the neutral zone, you don't have to think about the previous spot or that anymore, because now all rules pertaining to scrimmage kicks apply. And because that, the only option we have here left, the result of the play is a touchback. Now, again, that doesn't matter in this play because we're snapping from the 3. But it would matter if we're snapping from the 25 or the 30 and Team B tries to play the ball or touches the ball somewhere in the field of play or in the end zone and it's unsuccessful. Our normal thought might be, hey, they get the ball at the 25 or the 30. But the answer is no, they don't, because they lost that privilege by touching it. Then it's just a regular touchback. And the only option on the touchback is to go to the B20. Any question on that?
Kevin, great breakdown of kick rules, man. I mean, just unbelievable. We had some requests for mechanics discussion on these plays, but you know, we're going to have other sessions coming up about kicks, and we'll go deep into mechanics there. So, you know, Kevin, I think at this point, there's not too many more questions.
No, we're good.
I just want to really appreciate your rules knowledge. Came out in a way that was very easy to understand. You made it easy for us. If you didn't learn anything from this session, you know, I got to maybe go back and look at it again, because it was full of rules knowledge. And Kevin, you nailed it. So go ahead and close us out, and happy Easter, my friend.
You got it, guys. Brandon, Todd, Daniel, thanks a lot. I know, let's see, the next time I think we're up is Wednesday morning. And Brandon, you'll be doing Roughing the Passer along with Jeff. Is that right?
Yep, Jeff Flanagan will be on with us.
Great. That's another one that you're not going to want to miss. Guys, best of luck to all of you. Stay safe. Take care during this time. Happy Easter, and stay safe. And here's to hoping we're all back together doing what we love again. Stay safe and take care, everyone.
Awesome job, Kevin. Thanks.
You got it, guys. Take care.